Welcome back, everyone. Well, as you know, we're doing many of our interviews in studio with the Zoom, but I did have the opportunity to get out today, social distance being respected here, with my good friend Frank Dittrich, owner of the Earl of West on Lake George. And I follow Frank's emails, and he's been incredibly involved with other business owners, the chamber, our supervisors, in trying to map out not only what this crisis means for business in the region, but also what's the game plan? How are we going to get out of this? And when do we think we might get out of it? So Frank, thanks for inviting me up. I couldn't do this on Zoom with you. There's just way too much information.
Yeah, if you're going to socially distance at home, you can at least do it with a view.
Well, how about the lake?
Yeah.
Which never gets old. Frank, a lot of things to talk about. We're a tourism economy, and as such, we've got a couple of triggers that in February people were like, well, I think we'll probably be okay for Memorial Day. Well, now Memorial Day is around the corner, and by my calculation, we've got Memorial Day, we've got Americade, and then we've got the Wine and Food Festival. You've been talking to a lot of people about this. Give us an update.
Well, you're right about the beginning of the year. I mean, it was especially strong, honestly. I think for those that I'm in touch with, a lot of hotel owners, restaurant businesses in the area, we came through. It was January, February were really good months, and the outlook for the core tourism season was very good, coming off of a strong year last year. So, the mood was upbeat, and then I think it was on or about March 16th, the executive order comes out that says, okay, we started to ramp down restaurants at 50%, and that obviously moved quickly to closed, and then social gatherings at 250, I think, was the number. Above 500 was prohibited. 250 was the cut, and then that went to 10 to 1.
Yes, right.
All in a matter of days. And those reactions, obviously, given what was going on, made a lot of sense. So that caused all the businesses to take a serious look at what does this mean. So March, to me, honestly, surprising dollar values of lost business in the region, where events, business meetings, weddings, other gatherings had to cancel. Properties by properties, numbers in the hundreds of thousands of dollars in a month.
Sure.
That falls off the table. And then, April's a wash, that'll be a zero for businesses. Even if it's a hotel and they're open, occupancies and single digits of guests a night, generally. There's some exceptions if National Grid pulls in like they did with all the wind that we're having here today. In fact, they're here in case something goes wrong, so they shift resource to be prepared. So that's a bonus night, but that means you have 20 rooms in instead of in a 100-room property. So effectively, closed for all practical purposes, economically anyway. And then as the time's gone on with the pushing of dates on when we expect to see some relaxing of the rules or guidance that's out there. Rules are more, honestly, probably more correct than guidance.
Yeah, right. Sure.
You can't do this, you can't do that. Sure. As those are pushing out a couple weeks at a time, also understandable. What's happening is we were waiting for the plateau effect to kick in. Businesses become uncertain. What should I think? As you pointed out, we've got some key events and holidays that enter into the summer months with Memorial Day, Americade, and Wine and Food Festival being 3. There's others in the schedule as well. All of those are are really working. I don't want to say desperately, but it's a hard problem to move an event, and they only have a little bit of time to figure it out. And the gymnastics of trying to figure out, how do I secure a venue, an alternate date? How do I get everybody who's supposed to be there? How do I get the guests to come now that we're set up for them? All that's a very complex unit of work that those events, for example, are working hard on.
Yeah,
and it's also with uncertainty. So decision making are things like, well, I was scheduled to go in June. Should I move to July?
Yeah.
And then the devil's advocate position is, well, why do you think July will be better? And so, you just get caught in this loop of uncertainty.
And you know,
as to what to do.
a lot of business owners that I've talked to, and chamber presidents of the chambers, people basically had maybe 30, maybe 60 days of sort of reserve. Any service business. Let's face it, Frank, and we face it with our business too. You have to keep swimming.
Yeah, sure.
That's what it is. You're relying on the public.
Right.
And so it just seems to me that we're now starting to hit the point where people are actually more concerned than they were, and they seem to be looking to strike that balance. Mm-hmm. How long do we think this is going to take? And what would be the proper triggers then to
right.
say, okay, I think that we can start to come out of it.
Correct.
And what I'm hearing, and I really don't want your opinion on this, is that we're just not getting either enough guidance yet, or they don't know, the decision makers, as to when we might pull out of this.
Right. I think the guidance question is really difficult, right?
Yeah,
Who
sure.
knows, right? We're seeing it's, what is it, April 5th, 14th?
Mm-hmm.
So we've seen great news in the context that things have plateaued.
Seeing this
Obviously,
flattening, right.
obviously the fatality rate is way too high. Mm-hmm. So can you say in 2 weeks? How about a month? I mean, it's hard to imagine anybody honestly being able to make that. It seems that at the federal and state level, they're certainly making informed decisions. They have people around them that are helping. There's data involved, which always makes me feel better. Mm-hmm. So it's not a feeling about it. It's just, hey, this is what the data's telling us, and these are triggers, and if we can sustain, then it should do this, kind of predictions. And you hope the models are getting smarter every day because there's more data.
Yeah, right.
And they probably are. Now, when it loops back, though, to the local space, you mentioned balance. I think one of the keys here is, obviously the welfare and the safety of the public is the residents here in Warren County and the capital region are, is a top priority, right? But it's not if it's the only one, then it's going to trigger you to make certain decisions. And, looking at it from the business community and what I'm hearing from, over 250 folks in that email you referenced, that's the distribution list, a little north of 250 right now.
Wow.
It's hotels, restaurants, amusement, rides, zip lines.
What kind of
Anybody
feedback are
tourism.
you getting from business owners and or the supervisors you're talking? What are their priorities? What are their concerns?
Well, the supervisors are definitely all over the health concern.
Right.
That is exhausting work.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's some people in the county and the towns and villages, I'm sure they're exhausted because it's long days. And you're working differently, so the stress is higher. I went through this in a different life, right, when I was in financial services. So 9/11 was
Right.
really material. The banking system failed because downtown Manhattan, where all the computers went away. So it was a lot of high wire stuff. The anthrax scares and then the Lehman failure in 2008. All of those were big deals, right?
Yeah, sure.
When New York City was flooded, big deal. And the stress goes way up, and it's not healthy, honestly. But when you get hit with that, you get into this work zone that's really different, and so stress can be high, and you're tired.
And
so
that's
they're
what
working
you're
hard.
getting here too. People are, I'm getting the
working
same
hard.
thing, Frank.
And everybody, I
people
think, is
hear from.
working especially hard on this, certainly to make sure we don't become a statistic zone the wrong way.
Right.
Right. So good news there. The business community's needing help, as I was saying, on so what should we be thinking of and planning for? Can you give me a hint? If you all are thinking June's a wash, well, that's a different scenario than maybe June 1st. I'm making up dates here. So and your businesses would adapt with some guidance, which is, we were saying, is hard to get. The ask that we've made has been can we start to strike a balance of sorts? Balance doesn't mean 50-50, but it does mean we have to do some other variables here. The economic health of the community is a big deal. It takes money to run a county or a town or a village, and that comes from our taxes that we pay personally, but it also comes
The tourism
a lot
economy.
from the tourism
That's
economy
right,
and
sure.
the business taxes that are being paid to support the schools and everything else. And so you look around, I mean, if you drive around the area, you look at those, every restaurant or hotel, their mortgage is still there, and the revenue's zero. So,
right.
you know, as you pointed out, most businesses aren't going to carry a big reserve.
Now, recently, big conference call with the organizers for Americade. You wrote an incredibly detailed email to all of us about, it seemed like it was a very productive call. It was well organized, the agenda was put together well, and you covered a lot of important details. Mention some of the details.
Yeah, so Kristen Dutcher, who runs Americade, he actually ran the meeting. He did a great job putting that meeting together. You know, we helped in terms of business outreach. You know, saying, hey, this
Sure.
problem's bigger than Americade Central, where the expo is, and stuff like that. There's ripple effects that are going to happen if things happen. You move the date, you cancel, whatever the range of possibilities would be. There are different implications. You know, June in the Lake George region is different than August.
Yeah, of course.
So, you know, if you shuffle that for a lot of properties, well, geez, we're kind of full. So where will we put them, right? Under normal circumstances. And, you know, actually, in a lot of cases, we're still taking some reservations. You know, it's not a ton, it's not the right number, maybe 10% of what it should be. But people are calling and they want to be here. So that call with Kristen was that he arranged representation from business, the chamber, and CVB, Lake George Regional Chamber and the CVB. There were supervisors on the call. Mayor Blaze was on the call, Supervisor Merlino and Supervisor Bramer from Glens Falls, if I remember.
Yeah.
I don't want to leave anyone out, but those were names that were on the Zoom screen.
Yes.
And the discussion went through, Kristen starting with, hey, here's the reality of where Americade is right now. And, you know, he really has three scenarios. Hang in there for June, hope you can do it. Switch to some other date, pick a date, and the complications that
cancel
go
it.
with that. Or it doesn't make sense to do it this year. We'll regroup for next season. So it was a good discussion, and it was and there was contributions across the board that were good. Discussions about what dates work and what dates don't work. You know, is after Labor Day a good choice or a bad choice? If you're a hotel, you love it. If you're others, it may not. If you're a vendor that would attend Americade, Harley Davidson or Honda or whoever it might be, that date might not be available for them. It might not be appealing to Americade guests. So there's all those things that Kristen and the Americade team are struggling with. And this came on the back of a newspaper article that, you know, announced a new date,
I know.
which was not correct. It was a date.
Boy, did that send a ripple.
Yeah, that
You know?
caused a pretty good vibration
did.
through
It sure
properties, and then guests are calling. They want to know if it's true, and if it is, I want my money back. You know, so there's, you know, or I'm going to move. I mean, tell me, help me, and everybody's, you know, we're not even sure if it's right.
So where do we
that
net
got
out
corrected.
at this point?
So right now, a couple things. I think the correction to where we are, which is we don't know yet, is out. So at least for Americade guests and the businesses, it's settled down to still working on it. Kristen has a hard decision to make, and he took that input. I think he took it seriously, and he's trying to decide what's the right decision or the best decision for his event. And Sasha Party from Wine and Food Festival was also on that call. She has the same concerns,
Sure,
exactly
Wine
the
and Food
same. Just,
Festival.
you know,
Right.
instead of bikes, it's wine and
Right,
food.
right.
And the logistics of moving an event are serious. They're hard. It's not just, well, we'll rebook to Tuesday and everybody will show up. I mean, so
Well, you know what seems important to me here is that it's about informed decisions. And for as uncharted as this territory is for so many of us, it is really comforting to see how people are rallying together. And they seem to be asking the right questions. And they seem to be wanting to, you know, get the opinions of others to try to make what I would call an informed decision.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I think there's a question probably about pace.
Yeah,
you
right.
know.
Sure.
But there are a lot of moving parts here, and it is uncharted. We don't know. Mm-hmm. I mean, the scenario that I use as an example of that would be if, for whatever reason, the restrictions aren't relaxed until after July 4th. For some properties, that's a decision on, do I open?
Yeah, that's right. Sure.
You know, I've missed Memorial Day, I missed the big June events, I missed July 4th. I now have about 6 weeks left, fundamentally, in the core season, and should I open or sit it out? And that's, you know, obviously a negative for that business. In some cases, it'll be a negative for our guests because there'll be less to do. You know, if a restaurant decided to do that, for example, can't go to my favorite restaurant because they didn't open. Yeah. So, you know, those are the things that I think trying to get, you know, the phrase that's bouncing around a lot's task force.
Yeah.
And getting the right people in those roles is important, and people are working on it, which is good. There's a call, there's work going on, you know, to try to figure out how to organize a group that'll be functional, right people, right size, and, you know, looking forward to helping if, you know, if asked.
Well, thank you very much for the update. Thanks for inviting us up. I can't believe it, but there's a boat out there in the lake.
I heard that.
It's so funny. It sounds so unusual to hear a boat at this time of year. During the summer, of course, it wouldn't make a difference at all.
Yeah.
And Frank, we look forward to catching up with you. Keep us informed. Keep the emails coming, and stay safe.
Great. Thank
All
you.
right, pal.
Same to you.
All right.
Thank you.
See this interview again. You can head to our website, looktvonline.com.